Hi everyone, I'm going to present a paper on our corpus of German-English code switching to you. So code switching is a process of mixing two or more languages within a discourse or within a single utterance. This can take very different forms, and I brought a few examples to illustrate this. So the first example is, dass die Königin der Niederlande eine Leadfigure in diesem Konflikt war. In this case, the English word lead figure is inserted into an otherwise German sentence. The same holds true for this example. Ich will eine Foodtour durch ganz Berlin machen, where English word is inserted into an otherwise German sentence. But these words are not always like normal random words, but they can also be culturally specific items that are not present in the other language. Like, for example, the Staatsangehörigkeitserwerbsurkunde, you may now legally eat Bratwurst, where the word Bratwurst is German, but there is no actual English word for Bratwurst, and the word Bratwurst is shared across both languages. And for the Staatsangehörigkeitserwerbsurkunde, the whole concept of this certificate of becoming German might not exist in other languages. But there are also cases where words are not just inserted into another language, but also where the language is completely switched. Like, for example, und trotzdem wird auf uns Europäern rumgebasht. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So the sentence starts in German and then switches to English. And there's one more thing about this sentence. Like, there's also words that have a switch internally, like rumgebasht, which is an English word bash, and has German morphemes like rum and goethe. So the phenomenon of code switching is still relatively little understood when and why people code switch, and there's also still very few resources on this. And research so far has focused mainly on oral code switching and with very limited data of a small amount of authors. And we are going to focus on spontaneous written code switching in internet domains. So we're focusing on the triggering hypothesis, which states that lexical items that are shared across two languages can trigger a switch from one to the other language. And these lexical items might be borrowed words, cognates, or named entities. So if we start in a sentence in English and then hear the word Schnitzel, like the German word Schnitzel, this might facilitate a switch to German. But on the other hand, like if we start the sentence already in German and then we get the shared word Schnitzel, this might not trigger a switch to English. So the origin of the shared words is also important. So what we did is we created an annotation scheme for German English, incorporating these shared words and their origin. And we created a corpus of German English social media posts from Reddit that contained code switching and that we annotated with our annotation scheme. And we also trained classifiers that predict our language IDs. So this is our annotation scheme. And we have several different types of classes for overlaps, which are words that belong to both mental lexicons. And we also have several different classes for tokens that are language universal or that belong to all mental lexicons. And we use spatial markers to indicate the origin of words. Like, for example, here you can see that we have like E, D, and O for the different origins. And now I have a few examples to illustrate. So for example, for the named entities can take very different forms. Like, they can be shared completely across languages, like the word Berlin, which is just taken into English and like used as it is. These we consider as shared items. And we also have translated entities, which are either complete translations, like the word Vereinigtes Königreich, which is just translated from United Kingdom, or words that just take different etymologies. Like, for example, Germany and Deutschland, they don't share the same etymology, and such are completely different and are just considered like normal words of the language. There are also several types of adaptations that named entities can have, like orthographic adaptation, where just like the C is the K is written as C, or C is written as K, or but also like morphological adaptations, like adding morphemes that indicate one language, or like adding even lexical parts that indicate one language. We also identified several different types of borrowings. So they are mainly like the main important part about it is either if they are translations or how much they are integrated into the language. Like, for example, the word schnitzel does not have any translation to English, so that it is just a shared word. And for the integrity, like, for example, the word handy, which is used in German, but is actually like an English pronunciation word, like it's not really a German word. So people associate it with English, and for on the other hand, people would not associate words like cemetery or cotton, which are actually taken from another language, as non-English words. Then we also identified some some different kinds of mixed cases where words are compounded from one English and one German word, like Wohlstandsbubble, or where English word is taken and German morphemes are added, like verbackt or rumgebasht, and it can also be on entities. And we also added some categories for items that have cues to us, like for neutral items that have cues to a specific language, like 90s would only be used in English, whereas 90er would be used in German. We had very many classes, and some of the classes had very few instances in the corpus, so we also collapsed them into these categories. And for creating our corpus, we used the method that was already used by Rabinovich et al. And we downloaded 4 German language subreddits that are concerned about Berlin, Germany, and German-speaking Europe. And we hand annotated 950 of the comments that we extracted. And we then trained classifiers and ran them on the rest of the corpus. And the automatically annotated corpus also additionally has another range of around 100 different German-speaking subreddits. In total, we annotated 230,000 sentences, and we found 75,000 sentences that have code switching in it, like inside the sentence. For our classification, we use these features: orthography, character engrams, flexion and derivation morphemes, function word lists of function words, lists of frequent words, list of lexical components that are used for named entities, and word lists of named entities. And these are the results. We achieved an overall accuracy of 69.5%. And you can see that for some of the categories, like those that have like high support, the classifier worked really good. And for some classes, like the mixed categories, where the support was really poor, the classifier didn't work that well. But you can also see that for those for the shared classes, which already have like more support, the classification already worked much better. So we created a corpus of German-English code-switched utterances from user-generated social media content with precise language annotation indicating code switches. And we addressed challenges in multilingual data by introducing various types of shared and mixed categories. And in the future, we're planning, or we are currently working on psycholinguistic research using this and some other corpora that to investigate correlations between shared items and switches. Thanks for listening.